Alright, so this video is going to cover your agency discourse memo. Alright, things that we're looking at are your requirements. Alright, things that you need for your requirements: you need 12-point font. It needs to be single spaced, not double spaced. You're going to have 500 to 750 word limit. 500 is the minimum, and obviously 750 is the maximum. Okay. And then you need to make sure that the memo is in block format. You'll see more or less what that looks like in the samples that I provided you in Blackboard. And then you need to make sure that this is sent to my email, prof.aj.lechuga@gmail.com. Okay, it needs to be sent there and no other email. Okay. Alright, now let's look at some of the content that you're going to need. Okay, content must include sections that cover the agency's history, its characteristics, the discourse practices, its social contribution, and contact information. Okay, I'm going to run through each of these so you can get an idea of what each is filled with and how to address those sections within the memo. Okay, so you get an idea of what that's looking at. And then another thing that you need to include that I didn't put in here is you need to have your introduction. Okay, your introduction is pretty much just giving us an idea of what your topic is and kind of meshing that with your agency and how they relate to each other. Okay, alright, let's start with the brief history. Alright, the brief history is going to focus on the current president, the agency's original intent, how they've grown over the years, and where they're located. And then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at the founder. Who was the person who founded it, and when was the founding year? You need to make sure that's included. Obviously, the current president is important. And then you want to tell me more or less how the agency was originally set up and how it's kind of progressed and changed over the years. Okay, so it might have the same idea, but the mission may include a lot more than it originally included, so you need to make sure that's set. And then if it's located in a lot of different areas, just give me its central office. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Okay, alright, characteristics. Now the characteristics are going to look at who works for the agency, the partners, and possible contributors. Okay, when we're looking at who works for the agency, we're looking at CEOs, volunteers, supervisors, pretty much any type of job position that's offered at this company. Obviously, if you're looking at the CEO, you want to give the CEO what his duties are and then his or her name. If you're looking at volunteers, you don't necessarily need to give names, you just need to give like their roles and the duties within that company. Okay, so those things you need to look at. Okay, now looking at discourse practices, you're looking at a couple of things. Okay, you want to choose 2 to 3 genres to focus on because there's going to be a lot of genres associated with this company, so just pick 2 or 3 of them. Okay, you want to look at how these genres are used to communicate inside or and outside of the agency. Okay, so you want to look how these genres are aimed at a specific audience. For example, if I'm writing a newsletter, that's going to be aimed within the company, and then possible customers or people that work with them. You might look at advertisements that might be set towards the local community or a general community. Okay, so you need to identify who these genres are intended for and how they work differently within the company. Okay, how does a newsletter work differently within a company as opposed to a newsletter set out to customers or people that are looking from the outside in? Okay, so those are things you need to look at as well. You need to be very specific in detailing how these genres work. That's very important in this memo. Alright, so let's look at social contribution. Alright, now social contribution, you can divide it into 2 different ways. You can look at an overall idea of how they contribute. So you can look at maybe they're charitable, they do research, they provide fundraisers. If that's what they do overall, you can kind of go into that, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. And then you're going to go into more specific type. Okay, so if they do research, what type of research do they do? Do they have a research foundation? Okay, you want to identify that. A charity, if they do a charity run, you want to identify what the charity run is, when it was founded, who it was named after, and then where those funds for the charity go. It's very important you need to know where the funds go, if it's a charity or fundraisers or research. Okay. Alright, now let's look at the contact information / conclusion. Alright, the contact information. In the conclusion, I'm going to provide a 1 to 2 sentences reintroducing what the agency is and then their purpose. Okay, and then you're just going to follow that with some type of contact information. Now, that could be email, a phone number, an address. If you do provide an email, you want to hyperlink that so we have instant access to the email. Alright, some final thoughts. Alright, looking at this, you want to be very specific and concise. It's a very short paper, and you also want to make sure you give details where they're needed. Okay, just give the information that you know is important. You also want to make sure that you don't copy and paste directly from the website, and you don't have to necessarily rely on the website. You can Google and find additional information on these companies. Okay, so you want to exhaust your research so your agency discourse memo looks like it's complete. Those are the main things to put together. All right.